Hello and welcome to another edition of Press Row on Rivalry Family Media. I'm Todd Robbins. Happy to have you along with us for another edition of Press Row, and happy to be joined today by the president of the Leominster High School Athletic Booster Club, Rick Marchand. Rick, great to have you here with us on Press Row. And of course, you're a great person to talk to at these times, because you have such a broad view on all of the things going on. And we'll get into, of course, the upcoming events with the Booster Club, as well as the Johnny Appleseed Festival coming up in a little bit. But your experience both as a longtime educator, a longtime civil servant, as a member of the city council, you have so many different views that I want to tap into in the world that we are obviously living in today with this COVID-19 pandemic shutdown that we are dealing with today. And when I think about, of course, the world of education and your years of experience, you're not far removed into your retirement, and you're still actively involved working at Assabet Valley Collaborative. What have you seen, obviously, in this transition away from a physical classroom and being able to physically interact with students in person to a virtual world?
It's been challenging. It really has. And there's so many forces working against the ability for classroom teachers to connect with the kids. Some of it's actually legal. You can only do certain things with them, but it's also accessibility to technology, and that's really a key thing. In some communities, it's lacking, so they're trying to kick it up the best they can to be able to bring laptops into the household so kids can communicate with teachers in some attempt to deal with curriculum. But they're falling short, and right here in the city of Leominster, I know firsthand from my household the effort that's been launched by my wife with teaching at Samoset School, and how difficult it is to be able to actually connect with the kids one-on-one. So from that perspective, it's tough.
Oh, absolutely.
And, we're missing out in big chunks of the learning process. Where I work at Assabet Valley Collaborative, we deal with kids, young adults and individuals with severe disabilities, and that para connection, the teacher connection we have with the children is very intense from the moment they come in to the moment they board their buses on their way home. And you just can't do that through virtual classrooms. It really is lacking. And, teachers do make an effort to do things with the kids, but it's just not the same, and we're losing that component. But I think that's going to strengthen us at the end of the day, because we're all buying into the fact that we need to do this. We need to pay more attention to what's happening in a classroom. And I think people need to be more appreciative of what public education actually brings to the table.
And that item that I know you're referring to is something that I love being in public education, that I know you appreciate as well. It's that connection that you make, that human level connection that you make with students. Whatever curriculum you teach is so vastly, important to a certain degree, but beyond the importance of the actual curriculum is that human interaction. For some students, their interaction with their educators are the best interactions they're going to have every day.
There's no question about it. And educators more than ever today have become a very important part of the extended family. And I think that once we return back to the classroom, whether you're working with children with disabilities or the regular classrooms in public education, there's going to be a greater appreciation and value for it.
I think when I think about engagement, and obviously what it can be difficult competing for student attention when you're within the traditional classroom, when you've jumped into this virtual world, I feel like it's only amplified all of the other things that can pull at their attention and kind of stray them away from being able to interact with their education.
Absolutely. No question about it.
And it certainly has led to some difficulties in that approach. I promised you before we got started I was going to have you dust off your city councilor hat, as well as a former member, a longtime member of the Leominster City Council. There's a lot of implications, obviously, for all levels of government, and I think the old cliche so plays in here, and that is, of course, all politics ultimately are local. How much more difficult is it for local government at this point in time to be able to support its community?
Well, they've been able to continue with their responsibilities, which is important. However, it's not in the council chambers or in school committee chambers. It's all ended up being virtual. And for example, last night, the city council conducted their second meeting. And the first one was the first time in the history of the city that they ever did this, but they actually did it through telephone. So when you think about that, it's amazing. It takes away a lot of the contact that's made between councilors in a meeting, And sometimes, giving each other the eye, the thumbs up. There's a lot of gestures that take place that can really bring a spirited meeting together. But the council president, Mark Bonanza, has done a great job, and also the city clerk to be able to pull it off. And government continues as normal. It's just that they don't have a chance to actually sit down and get together. The other part, too, is with the council is traditionally they meet the second and fourth Mondays of the month. And sometimes there are hearings and subcommittee meetings around that. And so that's really the only time they have a chance to actually connect. In a legal connection, too, because you have the open meeting law as well. So for councils to be able to come together, how are things going on in their personal lives, their families, and also in the community, you're not getting that sense of sharing. It's not that they're not caring, it's just that it's almost impossible to share it the way we do. It's like an email. If I sent you an email, Todd, I could say words that you might take offensively because you don't really know where I'm coming from. Mm-hmm. But when we have a face-to-face conversation, we understand each other. So, unfortunately, a lot of that gets lost in the virtual world that we have to live in today.
You mentioned the open meeting law, and I've thought about the public meetings not just going on in Leominster, but all across, obviously, the state of Massachusetts and across the country. That transparency piece, the importance of obviously getting together in the council chambers and obviously on television that allow people to interact and understand what's going on just outside of their windows in their own community is kind of a lost piece in this. Other communities I know have been playing around with meetings via Zoom and trying to broadcast those, but that's certainly not an ideal format either for conducting a public meeting. So how do you balance that need for transparency and engaging your constituents while also kind of being on the other side of that and needing to just conduct business one way or another, and you're forced apart?
It's tough. It's a tough situation. And, even though the meetings might be broadcast on local television afterwards, and they do hold a public forum and they do conduct hearings, it's still not the same. We've had people that have been watching city council meetings or a hearing take place, and all of a sudden they show up in the council chambers to speak in the public forum. So this is a little bit tricky right now. I don't know if we're going to have to get used to it for a while, but it seems like, Council President Bonanza and his team of councilors and the clerk are working well together to try to pull it off. And it has to be business as usual. They have to continue. They can't shut the city down as a result of this particular glitch, and they've done a fine job pulling it off.
Local budgets, of course, have always been a point of contention. It's that balance between obviously making sure that you prioritize, one item at a time in order to get things accomplished. And I feel like in some ways, we're starting to see already in cities and towns, all across the country, the squeeze that this pandemic is going to put on local budgets. And ultimately, again, this is going to roll down from federal to state to local, and eventually right into somebody's classroom, right into the pothole in their street. Things aren't going to be maybe as readily available. How can communities get creative and maybe get around this time period?
I see it every day. And what's happening is I'm involved in documenting the pandemic. And I received a grant from the Leominster Cultural Council in the state to actually get out and do photography. And it's shocking. What I'm photographing is absolutely shocking to me. I'm not going to share all of it with the public at this point because I'm collecting it and still photographing. But I've been down to malls where there is not one car. You see stores that are completely closed up. And what's happening is it's just horrible. And how they're going to be able to bounce back is going to be a great challenge. We all got drawn into the online sales, and it went from infancy in on a fast track, not a slow track, to where it is today, where it's probably not a day that goes by where we're not purchasing something from our household online. And so what's happened is, as a result of that, there's going to be a comfort level, and especially the fact that you don't have to go out. You don't have to go into harm's way with potential virus, and you can just do it online, get the best price. And so the impact that's going to have on the commercial establishment, not just in Leominster, but throughout the country, is going to be significant. So with that, you have a mall. You have a mall with empty stores. Those empty stores don't bring in rent. The mall comes in, they get an abatement. And it's almost automatic. But it's not just the malls, it's going to be the other retail strip malls as well. And so what happens is in Leominster, we have a single tax rate. And the single tax rate is you and I as homeowners pay the same rate as a commercial building or a manufacturing building. And it's been a great partnership for a long time. And the balance is 80% revenue generated from residents and 20% from the commercial industrial. That is going to flip. I'm going to tell you right now, no matter who forecasts what, it's going to flip. You just see it. The mall just sold for 14 million, and at one time was on the table for almost 50. So as soon as the appraisals catch up with the times, and as soon as the hardships get submitted, you might see a chunk of money that would generally be used in the general fund for the cities and towns throughout the country, in their annual budgets, and that's going to be depleted. So if you look to the state, I don't think the state's generating what they need to generate any longer either. Because when I go online and pay sales tax, sometimes I pay sales tax, or sometimes I do not pay it, depending on the company, what state you're buying it from. It's having an impact, and we're going to see it. There's no question about it. This isn't just a few weeks. We're out of the pandemic and we bounce back.
And of course, the difficult part is that, whether it's, police services, fire services, education services, trash pickup, there are so many factors that play into what a city or a town delivers on the daily for their constituents and their residents. And obviously, there's going to be this push because, as you said, if you can't pay your taxes, that means there's less revenue coming into your governmental, associations and industries. If that doesn't happen, obviously it checks off a number of other boxes of things that then roll down into what else? Less services. And it puts a real squeeze on people that perhaps we won't see at the initial outset, as you're pointing out. We'll see the local businesses at first maybe get challenged, but it's going to be the cause to your police, your fire, your educators on down the line, where eventually you're going to start to see cutbacks there as well.
It's a possibility that could happen. And Leominster is a very financially strong community, but at this point, I don't think any community is as solid on a foundation as it wants to be or needs to be for the forecast. Leominster's done a great job. The mayor's done a great job. Comptroller, city council. We are probably one of the strongest financial per capita communities in the Commonwealth, no question, hands down. And as you know, and I know, both being educators, the teachers in Leominster are grossly paid compared to other communities. You could take a job in Leominster at $45,000, $50,000 and push it up to close to $80,000 in affluent communities, only 25 minutes down the road. And that's a fact. So we've done a great job with holding the line, but we need our services. We need our public safety. We may have to rethink, I think, as a community, how we do things. But, I pray that we don't lose the strong programs we have right now for not only public safety, but public service as well. And, my experience of being on the city council for 22 years, it's basically what people really care about. They care about that quality community that they can rely on, depend upon. We just had a fire 4 houses down from my house 2 days ago. 2 days ago. And the fire started on the first floor, got into the wall. There were no blocks in the wall, because it's a house that's over 100 years old, went right up into the 3rd floor attic. The fire department was there. I can't tell you how fast they put it out. And they had their system down. It's a science. And the fact of the matter is, if it wasn't for that quick response, that house was gone. And in the meantime, the damage was not as significant. And, there will be people who will be able to move in with renovation down the road. But we don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose that 911 where there's a police officer at your doorstep in a matter of minutes. These are significant pieces that we need to maintain. And I think that as public officials, they will fight to keep those programs strong and safe and healthy. And even though money may get tight, we're just going to have to take a look at some other areas to tighten up. That's all there is to it. And there's not a lot of room there, because everything's basically fixed. So we'll have to see how that plays out as a community.
Time will certainly tell. And then, of course,
Sure.
there is the other duties that, of course, that you have been, kind of tasked with, involved with along the way. And that involves this kind of new outgrowth, the Leominster High School Athletic Booster Club, of which you are now the president. And this is kind of an outgrowth of sport-based booster clubs, which, for those that maybe have kind of only loosely kind of viewed it, at Leominster High School, there is, at this time and now kind of merging along, there are individual sports that have groups of parents and supporters that work to support individual groups of sport and athletes, whether it's football, whether it's lacrosse, whether it's girls basketball, or what have you. They all work individually to support each individual sport. Going forward, starting next year and beyond, we have this kind of united front booster club, of which obviously kind of started with an outgrowth of the management of the football booster club, and is now kind of moving forward from there. As president, and kind of as you're looking at what you guys are tasked with doing here, I mean, this is no easy feat, because of course, just serving one sport is difficult. To serve all of them is incredibly difficult. But how important was it to finally unify and speak with one voice when you're approaching members of the community for their support?
Well, first of all, I had a passion to serve on the city council. I'll continue to serve in the city of Leominster. But I had to leave the council, and I had to leave if I was going to be involved with this booster club. I couldn't go to a board of directors, as I have, and put on a presentation about what we need and leave the room and have them say he's doing it for political gain. I needed for them to say just the opposite. He left politics to get involved, to help out. This is meaningful, it's valuable, and he's proven his point. So he is me, in this particular case here. So I had to make a change. And with that, I think came the credibility of what we were trying to move forward here. And we needed to take care of all the kids. It's long overdue. When my daughters were in high school, I helped with the cheerleading program to raise money. I helped with girls softball to raise money, girls field hockey to raise money. When my grandchildren, Callie and Connor, were at Leominster High, again, I helped with field hockey, a little bit with ice hockey, and a lot with football. And, one of the things that I always felt bad about were the other kids that weren't having the same type of an experience with a strong, organized group of parents that were helping out. Many of the sporting teams did have parent advocates that were out there pushing and championing the kids, taking money out of their pocket and doing things for them. But there was great disparity. In this past school year, actually the one we're in right now, if you take a look at it, we had a booster club for football and cheerleaders. And cheerleaders, by the way, only came into the football club 2 years ago when we brought them in. They weren't in there for the past 11 years. We have boys hockey, ice hockey, boys baseball, boys lacrosse. Now, when you take a look at 27 sports at Leominster High School, a couple being co-ed, there's only 4 clubs and they're all taking care of the boys. There are parents helping out, but not consistently. An example would be a girls' hockey program 2 years ago had a parent who's a business owner who helped the team. And he did a great job. The money came from him. And then after his daughter went to college, he moved up to the college level. So they lost that sugar daddy, I guess we'll call him at this point, that was always helping the kids out. So the Booster Club idea was to involve everyone and organize a program where people set financial goals, and what we do is we boost or complement the existing budget and some of the needs of the school department. The school department does not circumvent their responsibility by making us kick in from this angle. What we do is we do those initiatives that are governed by MIAA that are responsible. They're also respectful to both genders in all the sports, and also legal as well. That's an important thing. So what we did was we put together a booster club. We went before the school committee. It was adopted in January, the club. We are a 501c. We have an executive board. We're meeting every other week on Sunday mornings, first at the Veterans Center, then last meeting was to be held at City Hall in the John Tate Auditorium. Everything's posted in the city clerk's office. Minutes are taken. We got it going. Where we did our first presentation to corporate America, and then we had to slam the brakes on last meeting as a result of the virus we're all dealing with right now. So it was pretty disheartening. It kind of knocked us off our feet a little bit like everybody else, but we're Behind the scenes, we're going to be strong. We're going to continue to communicate. And once everything calms down, then we'll be back on our feet to help out. We've got a great board. If I could just share with you some
Yeah,
of the
absolutely.
people.
I'd love to.
This is Mike Griffin. You know Mike very well.
Yep.
Mike's the vice president. Mike was involved in the Lassie League and also college softball for a long time. We have James Jarose. Jim is one of the leading, he's like the treasurer and financial analyst for us, but he's also one of the financial analysis, for the YMCA on the state level. We have Jimmy Philbin, who's his financial assistant. Jimmy is a mechanic over at the Mart Bus Company. We have Jolene Constant, who's an administrative clerk. She does it all, behind the scenes. And we know Jolene from the Veterans Center and all the work she does. We have Lori Bedoin from Taylor Rental. She also owns 3 other businesses. And Lori's a softball advocate, but she's also, most importantly, she's our Title IX compliance officer. We don't spend a penny until Lori Bedoin says you're in compliance. And if we dedicate funds, for example, to a team, Lori's going to say, okay, we need to shift some money over to this area too. So we're constantly doing dollar for dollar the best we can once we get into it. So that's her responsibility. Kathy Taylor is really big around the boys lacrosse club. Her husband, who's also not a member of the club but a consultant, is the president of the Boys Booster Club. For the one that exists right now for the boys lacrosse. They're just great people. We see Todd down in the field at the sidelines holding the chains every home game, for football. And Kathy just does it all. She's a great organizer for people. We have Kelly Marciano. Kelly, I believe, has the record right now for the longest standing coaching position at Leominster High School, the current one. I think she's pushing 30 years. And we've seen her on at one time field hockey. Now she's a varsity coach at North Middlesex, but we also know her for girls basketball, girls softball as well. And we have Mark LaPrade. Mark LaPrade was one of the co-directors or facilitators of Imagination Station back in the early 90s, where they raised $100,000. And Mark is our media specialist. He knows how to do all the things that we hear about social media. He's also strong with one of the groups down in Worcester, so he's going to be taking some of his talents to helping us to really promote, what we're doing from the club. Jen Savatelli is our scheduler. She's great. Her daughter is a senior this year, a cheerleader at Leominster High School, and Jen is just absolutely fantastic. She is going to be taking a schedule, and for example, if Katie was coaching JV girls softball, we would be in a situation, she would call up and say, I want to do a fundraiser. What's available? What can I do? Do we have any standard things? What dates would be good? So they would coordinate that with Jen, so there's no conflict. And at the same time, with one click of the finger, all the coaches and parents know all the different things that the teams are doing throughout the year. So tonight might be a dine-out night, for example, at Texas Roadhouse for whoever, like boys baseball. So we can just go out there and 10% of your check goes to the boys baseball club. So there's, a lot of things like that will be happening with Jen. She'll also keep that with the school department. So the school department, most importantly, knows what we're doing. And then we have Linda Philbin, Jim's wife. Linda's been on the football club for a few years. She has twins that'll be seniors next year on the football team. And she's the assistant clerk to the program. Then we have Jamie Perla, who's been in the Hall of Fame twice for football. He actually is, he doesn't have any skin in it right now as far as having children or anything playing sports at Leominster High, but he's such a champion of Blue Devils. It's just amazing. So Jimmy is one of our directors, and also Melissa Kuel is a banking representative we have right now from Rollstone Bank. So we're very fortunate. We've got a strong group. Joe Cayette's our accountant. Mark Benanz is our legal consultant. And Kim and Russ Fye are actually from Infinite Design. Will be doing our webpage. So the idea is that this group of people will govern and oversee all the different teams and the money they want to raise and the money we're going to raise. And there's two categories. There's money we raise, and there's money that the teams will continue to raise when they do their fundraisers. What will happen is all the money comes into the booster club, and every team, every sport in each one of their teams has a line item. So even if it's a freshman level basketball team, they have a line item. So if they do a fundraiser, the money goes into that line item, and 100% of it is their money. It is not our money. Our money comes from the big corporate level and also the big fundraisers we're going to do. We actually had one at Brady's. It was scheduled for March, and we had to cancel it. And that was going to be a big night because the money raised that night, we were hoping to be able to buy brand new girls softball uniforms and brand new girls lacrosse uniforms for this spring. So the kids have already designed the uniforms with the company. They're all set to go, but obviously everything's in a holding pattern right now. So it's a great group of people. The advantage of it, if I may, is that right now with 4 clubs, you have to maintain 4 501c. You have to file 4 different taxes. We take care of all of that for everyone. So as it will roll out, the idea was at the end of this school year, the clubs would be done and everyone would be a part of this piece right here, unless the school committee thought otherwise, from that.
So as I think about obviously a lot of the items I want to kind of unpack from this, first thing I can think of is the nice balance that I see obviously in your kind of board membership, because you're going to always have people who, as you said, are going to come through, have their 4 years of engagement while their son or daughter comes through as a Leominster athlete, and then they're going to roll off and continue on with them, hopefully to the next step of their kids' careers, which means you're going to always have some people in your leadership that are kind of in a rotating basis where they're coming and going. And then, of course, in order for this to be a strong and vibrant organization, you need established members who are either community members or alumni members who aren't going to go anywhere. They're going to kind of serve as kind of those pillar foundation pieces that are going to keep the club moving generation to generation.
Exactly, and that's so important, and that's where the coaches run into trouble. We've had coaches that have been around a while, but they've had different parent groups and different attitudes and about how they're going to run those groups. Parents are still going to be involved. We're still going to have, they're going to still organize and they're going to still do things for their teams. It's just that what happens is if they fall short, we can help out. Or if the coach needs something and they're not in a position to be able to do it, that's where we come in. An example of that was before I retired from Shrewsbury High School teaching, I was the girls volleyball coach. And the year that I became the varsity coach, 4 days before tryouts, by the way. So by default, our coach couldn't take it on because of a job commitment. So they asked me to take it on. And it happened to be a year where we're anticipating about maybe 50, 60 girls coming out for volleyball, for JV and varsity. We had 127.
Wow.
And the thing about volleyball is you can teach it. So it was impossible to hold the line to less than 30 kids. So I went to the athletic director, and because it was the beginning of the school year, his budget was already set. So he could not fund a third team. So what he did was he sent me up to the booster club that meets monthly, and I went up there with my captains on the varsity. And we told them we want to carry 15 on the varsity, 18 on JV1, 18 on JV2. I needed a third set of uniforms. I needed as many new volleyballs plus game balls, and I needed 2 sets of standards because we only had 1. And the kids were actually practicing, the JV team was practicing on the old pipes from phys ed class.
Yep.
And it was just a pain. We did go 19-1 though. But in the meantime, it was a pain. So in the meantime, what happened was the booster club said, okay, what's the bill? So I told them $15,553.35 to be exact. So they said, how are you going to raise it? So they looked at the girls, and the girls said, well, we're going to do a bake sale at Stop and Shop 2 Saturdays in a row. And we're going to sell some blue and gold cards. So they said, well, how much can you raise? Well, we're going to try to raise like 1,000. So they said, okay, you girls do the 1,000 and we'll take care of the rest of it for you. So what happened was they had that money that had been raised in the tune of over 200,000 in excess and deficiency that had been raised over a period of a few years. So they could initiate the funds to be able to take care of those kids so we could have a program. What was interesting is we got the uniforms in less than a week. The standards were delivered on a Monday, and the balls, I think, took a couple of weeks, and this was on a Thursday that I went in. The advantage of the Booster Club is we can buy the material and the equipment with the snap of the finger. If you go through the school department, there's all kinds of protocols they have to follow based on municipal finance. It could take months before you could even get it allocated. And so there's no way you could pull that off. So the Booster Club is in a position, again, when a school department cannot fund an event for the kids, another team, whatever's necessary, we are the ones that are going to jump in, to initiate the money to be able to take care of that, allocate it. And it all comes from, the fundraising we do outside of the kids and the things they do specifically for their teams.
And, I'm glad you raised the Shrewsbury example as one of the notes I had here, because obviously your education career largely was in Shrewsbury and coaching career there as well. And they've been using this one united booster club model now for decades. So they are certainly incredibly well established. How much did your experience with them influence the ideas that you brought to creating this united booster club here?
To be honest, well, as far as the need to create it, we all knew we needed to do it. As far as the model, about 99% of what we use came from Shrewsbury High School. I also tapped into some of the other booster clubs down in the area, but for the most part, it was all we had to do was drop a lot of our information in there. We're still working on bylaws. We have a bylaw subcommittee that'll be working, on this, and that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, something we'll be working on soon, even though we're not together right now. But every community has a different approach on how they do things. And even though we haven't had a booster club and we haven't had like the corporate people really buying into high school sports right now, because you go down to Shrewsbury High School, you go down to Algonquin, you go down to Westboro, and you see all these fields and these signs, everything was built by corporate America. We haven't really tapped into them, but they did a great job fixing up Doyle Field, didn't they?
They did.
And I remember going back in the last year league when my daughter Stephanie was 5 years old, and we didn't have a T-ball program. And that's when we launched the Field of Dreams. And back then, T-ball was the way to go. And after 1 year, the girl says, "We're not playing T-ball. We want to play softball." So they brought in the next level. But for the fact of the matter is, they were always there for us. This community's been great as far as forming partnerships, and I think they're really going to step up for this booster club. When they see the valiant effort we're making, we believe in it, and that's important. We don't just think we need it; we believe we need it, and we want to make Leominster a community of sports where we just really reach into the neighborhoods, pull kids out, and get them involved, build the numbers, take care of the kids that can't afford to play, make sure the coaches are all taken care of as far as the equipment they need. When we take a softball team and we go to Shrewsbury High School, we know how those kids look. We want to look like that. That's a good role. That's a good modeling program where their boosters have really kicked up the quality of the things the kids have. And when the kids look good and feel good, they play well. And we're just excited about doing it. But, the homecoming, we had a day down Doyle Field last year, if you remember.
Yep.
And there were 4 or 5 different games that took place. Kids came down, the band was there. We're going to continue to do those kinds of things. The pasta dinners that were held on Thursday night are no longer just for the football team. We're talking about doing a Tuesday night and a Thursday night, and any coach that has a team that has a game the next day, they can come down and we'll have enough food for them too. So there's a lot of really unity type of things happening. We're looking forward to it. We have a brand new logo that brought in a woman and a man, Blue Devil, together with all the different equipment around it. It's been very exciting, as you can tell, I hope. And everybody really believes in it. And some of the people that kind of pushed back at first, wondering how it was going to work, as they find out how it plays out and the benefits behind it, they buy it and they're on board.
Well, I think one of the concerns that everyone always runs into, and this is not just a Leominster issue, this is a broader Massachusetts national issue, is people, especially at the high school athletic, area, see football and they know what a financial commitment it is, and the type of supports that are needed beyond what the school district can provide, whatever school district that may be. And then they look down at the fundraising arms, obviously, that have to reach out and kind of provide where, and kind of gap fill what those boosters, end up doing to support any football program. And then they look back and they go, well, then how can one club unify and support that kind of a program and obviously maintain the energy to support all of the other athletics? And I think the only example you can point to is obviously, for better for worse right now, if you look at the college level right now, everyone knows that one of the key ways to maintain college athletics in 2020, 2021, and anywhere beyond is there has to be a 2020 college football season in order to allow the existence of all those other sports and all of those athletic departments. Same can play here at the high school level as far as fundraising goes. Yes, football is an incredible undertaking, but that energy can permeate, and the reach of that energy can permeate all the way down the athletic endeavor through those 27 programs.
I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you a year from today. It's going to be an interesting year ahead of us, no question about it. NCAA right now is discussing the potential of having a spring football season with modified schedules. We don't know how things are going to look out. I have a grandson right now that goes to Wesleyan, as you know, down in Connecticut. He's up in his room right now in an online class. Earlier today, he was running up the street, working out, doing chin-ups on my woodwork up here underneath the door jams. I hope they last. But, I mean, it's frustrating for everyone. It really is. And, if we take it one day at a time, listen to the leaders that make sense, that are out there giving us the information to the best of their knowledge and not getting into the political, backlashes or anything like that. We need to be safe. We need to be careful. We need to do something to celebrate our seniors this year. I think that's a real issue. We're in a pandemic, and this isn't something that specifically attacks a group based on lifestyle. This is everyone's affected by it. So, hopefully, we're going to be healthy, stay safe, and then eventually put together some kind of athletic program with integrity, that the kids can enjoy, that's safe at the time. But it doesn't look like it's going to be a good road ahead of us for a while, so it's just a question of maybe even doing things a little differently. And I don't know how we change how we play sports. Obviously, there are some sports that could pull it off, and others that there's no question they can't.
How much does something like this pandemic throw off the projections? Obviously, at the outset of any booster club, right? You're trying to kind of get that nest egg that you talked about, that Shrewsbury was able to tap into to help your volleyball program at that moment in time. How much might that kind of development of that nest egg be stunted by an event like this when you have to try to approach corporate America, especially local businesses?
Well, so let me share something with you. I went to a company in town. I won't say the company's name, of course. And I put on a presentation, and it went really well. Everybody was really pleased with the mission, where we were going as a booster club, what I had asked for. And within a day after that conversation, I got a call asking if I could help them, because they basically we went deep into the pandemic, or the onset of it, and they had some ideas that how they wanted to help out. So they wanted to tap into me a little bit as far as what I thought about what they were doing. And as it is right now, I'm putting in 5 to 7 hours a day, volunteering my time to help that company on their mission. That's going to be pretty publicly announced next Tuesday night on NBC Channel 10 Boston. Mm-hmm. They're going to be doing a broadcast on that. But in the meantime, everybody, keep an eye out. There's a way you can get involved here. And I don't want to really push that right now. But so what's happened is I went to them for help for the kids, and now it's turned around where I'm involved with them in a whole different angle. So we don't even talk about the kids right now. because it's a bigger picture than athletics. We need to help each other with food and safety equipment and all the things we can do behind the scenes, to help the people working in the front line, which is, it's horrible what they have to face. So that's our deal right now. And eventually when things calm down and we get back on our feet, then from a moral point of view, we can approach the topic of making a donation to help the athletic program. But right now, all the resources have to go into this pandemic. So that's pretty much where that's been. There are some people that have committed checks and they're struggling to figure out how to stay in business. No one's pushing anyone. We're just backing off right now. And anybody that can help anyone, we're out there doing it.
No question about that. And it is all about building that community spirit, of course, that we've talked about. And that's kind of the other, I think, unseen piece of what happens, right, with a booster club. There's the financial contribution piece, and then there's the community spirit piece. Obviously, there's a great community spirit. We hear it all the time about the Blue Devil Nation here in Leominster. And you guys are kind of at this great, place to kind of organize and help launch that, even further and kind of push that community spirit beyond. How do you see your role, obviously, in generating, organizing, and pushing forward that community spirit piece?
I think that the kids are going to be absolutely awesome when they come back together. I think their relationship with their teachers is going to be quite heartfelt. They're going to really appreciate, respect, and value their classroom teacher and the education they're getting. Some of them are very lost right now because many of us are lost. We don't know from day to day what's going on. But in the meantime, I really believe in my heart of hearts that at the end of the day, we're going to be much stronger than we've ever been before. And I think that when it comes down to community activities, whether it's the Johnny Appleseed Festival or Starburst or all the things that Melissa does down at City Hall, which are absolutely fantastic, more people are going to come together and celebrate who we are as a community.
And speaking of those community celebrations, of course, you name-checked it, the Johnny Appleseed Festival scheduled for 2020 in September. And of course, I know you're a community engagement person. That's why you're involved with all of these organizations. Whether it's, been the Leominster Downtown Association many years ago, your service on the city council, creating all of these community events and structures. And this one, the Johnny Appleseed Festival, is kind of the premier celebration in the center of town each and every year, obviously. Give us a little update. Where does that stand? Obviously, it's hard to project where we're all going to be, a number of months from now because of what's going on. But how are things moving forward with Johnny Appleseed Festival 2020?
Very carefully. But I can tell you, and I believe it's going to happen. I think, God's blessed us. We've had hurricanes around it and 95-degree weather and everything else, but we've been able to pull it off year after year. We've been very fortunate. There's only been 2 postponements, but the postponement this year could be pretty significant, as you know. But what I've been doing is really investigating the way that I could do a Johnny Appleseed Festival in a safe way. And I've talked to a lot of people. How do we do a petting zoo? How do we sanitize inflatables? How do we provide entertainment? Do we have some kind of a limited closing area where only so many people are on the grounds at one time? How can we do all of these things? So it's usually this time of the year. I'm hustling to generate my sponsorship court, which are 120 strong usually. My entertainment's already done. As far as contract services for all the different things I needed done, but trying to figure out the schematics of it, how it's going to work, and put new initiatives into it. And right now, and also most importantly, finding sponsors. Because that event is, no matter how you look at it, it's $40,000 a year to run. And so between I'm very grateful now that it's in the city's pocket. The mayor does the best he can to help us out, but we never wanted to put this on the burden on the taxpayers, and we could run it ourselves from day one. So we do have some money saved up for a rainy day, which is this year. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, we still have to generate a lot. And it's going to look totally different this year if we do have it. In that, I think there are vendors that need to be there that have never been there, that know today they need to be there. And a lot of it's really community-based. And I want to make sure that more than ever, a lot of these stores that are hurting or small businesses that are in that area have a chance to participate. It's not going to cost them anything. That's where the sponsorships come in. And just to be able to just come out, and take advantage of crowds and patrons, and hopefully build new patrons for their establishments as well. But I just hired Whitney Doucette yesterday. So she's got an hour gig. Bob Haley's ready to go. I don't know about the schools yet. We'll see how that plays out, but most likely we'll have some children groups up there representing the schools, I'm hoping. We also have a rock band. He's ready to go. So we can spread people out on the stage. We can spread out the audience. We'll do everything we can within the guidelines, if it does happen, to make it as safe as we possibly can. And most importantly, we have to have our apple crisp.
I was thinking the apple crisp was a no-brainer regardless of a community.
I know, but I don't know how the First Baptist is playing out with this pandemic right now. I'm afraid to ask.
They have delivered, as you said, in the 2 times that you all have had to cancel, unfortunately, there's always been apple crisp. So I considered that to be a no-brainer, no matter how it played out. Is there a chance, and obviously you have seen the ability to, and amazingly, I mean, year in and year out, obviously, found ways to pack more and more and more people into,
I know.
The Park Street, West Street kind of triangle there around Monument Square. Is there a chance that this could be the year, as you're saying, there's more and more small businesses that may need to be involved, that we may have to turn the corner either onto Main Street, or are we going down Church Street here at some point? I mean, how big can this get?
Well, the nice thing about the JA Festival is that it's a confined area. So when you get 15, 18,000, sometimes over 20,000 people, it's packed all the time, and where your kids are. And we may have to take an approach, and Melissa has taken with her team down to City Hall, like, for example, with the Summer Stroll, where they just open it up more to let it breathe. So potentially that might be part of the resolve, to be able to open it up a little so people aren't so congested and just spread everyone out. You wouldn't see, for example, like a vendor. I have the booths are 15 by 15. Mm-hmm. So I'm already started re-engineering the plan. I'm going to meet with Billy Hannigan and Hannigan Engineering to clean it up for me. But it would be a booth, 10-foot gap, booth, 10-foot gap. But if we spread it out, we can still have as many vendors. It's just over a larger geographical area. But that creates a problem with bus transportation, traffic downtown, because we don't just go from like 1 to 5 or 2 to 5. We go from 6 in the morning till 6 at night. So I'll have to work with the police department on that, see how it goes. But I think that's a great point you bring up. Thank you. I think we're going to have to open it up and let it breathe a little.
But I mean, you are absolutely right. I mean, it's the unfortunate byproduct of the scenario that we're going through, right? Because that has been obviously one of the strengths of the Johnny Appleseed Festival, is maintaining that core, and where you want to, of course, grow the population of people that can be involved. And it is that premier balance of small businesses being able to obviously establish, new clientele, community, organizations, much like a booster club, being able to fundraise. It's probably the premier fundraising event of the year, on most community calendars. And then you check off the other things, as you said, the kids being able to, have activities, the community being able to have activities, this kind of, I mean, the idea of a stroll is one thing, but this is like the ultimate stroll, with entertainment and performances and everything that it has been. And of course, it's the oldest. It's been around the longest. It's had the chance to obviously become so well rooted in this community. And I think your point is well taken, that it's going to come at maybe what could potentially be, if things turn in a positive direction with this pandemic, the perfect time to relaunch everyone going out in the community. Yeah,
I do know that Paul's Rental, for example, who's been a sponsor and a partner, deferring a lot of the expenses year after, for 22 years now, out of 26. He all of a sudden they got inundated because all the cancellations for June, July, all the fairs and festivals pushed into September. So we were fortunate. I contracted with him 3 days after the last festival. So we're all set. But hopefully that's going to be the window where we can take a little breath. And as long as we do it in a way that is not harmful, and we have sanitizing stations and things like that involved, and, social distancing, enough masks for people to come to it even, hopefully we'll be able to pull it off. Starburst is August 22nd. That got bumped.
Yep.
So that's going to be interesting how that plays out. So I think that that's going to be, before that, I know that Melissa's heartbroken. She can't do the stroll and all those things, but we may have a kid fest coming up that she puts on. So there's going to be time to be able to, implement and assess to make sure it's safe. And also I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of policy that comes from Boston to be able to help guide us to be able to pull it off, or they just say you can't do it.
When the time ultimately comes and you all have to make that decision, and obviously to push out into the community, I think this has been one of the key concerns we're seeing in every facet of our lives, right? What's going to be the indicator that it's okay to get together and do these sorts of things? Or how do you get people to believe it's okay? I mean, you're a great guy getting the message out there. How do you expect you're going to be able to get that point out to people that, yeah, it's okay. It's okay to come out of this shutdown and be a part of the community again?
Yeah, I really think it has a lot to do with the planning. And, if we can create a safe scenario, I just saw on the news a church that had an outdoor mass, and people were all sitting socially distancing and everything. It worked out great. So somehow we can figure out how to show that this is going to be an event that, the pressure's off to a certain degree, as long as you follow and comply with what you need to do. That might build the confidence, but we're not going to compromise anyone. We're not going to compromise anyone regardless. If we have to put it off for a year, we put it off for a year. But right now, it's pedal to the metal. We're going forward to try to figure it out.
The long story message here in our conversation, Rick, this is where I want to leave it, of course, is the importance of community. What we have, I think, all discovered, whether it's an educational community, whether it's your local community, whether it's your community athletic events and supporting your local high school, or getting out into a community event like the Johnny Appleseed Festival, regardless of how we come out of this pandemic, the importance of community is something that I think people will hopefully never take for granted again.
I have a feeling the ones that needed to learn, the values of what we have here got hit real hard. The people that understood we have a great community, it gets even stronger. And I see the things that Neil's doing up at the garden center, the garden spot, and some of the things that Ginny's doing, and some of the outreach programs the churches are doing, a lot of work done behind the scenes. I'm working with seamstress right now. And in the matter of the last 3 days, I'm up to 18. Trying to put together 100. They're making masks. And these are masks that is designed to actually fit so taut on the face that the people who are in the heart of the front line want to wear them. And they're not that comfortable sometimes, but they're very protective. And they've been scientifically proven. And as I visit an 85-year-old woman in her den, showing me her stitching room with an old machine in Fitchburg, I'm up in Winchton, Ashburnham, all over Leominster. 3 family members of Leominster working on it and realizing they're all doing it. Just great, And so, I mean, we have a great community, and people do envy us. There are some communities that may be considered more affluent according to them. But when it comes down to the heart and the pulse of people, and celebrating who we are as a community and all the cultures and the religions and everything that we represent, we have a great city and we have great people, and the ones that care are really stepping up right now to help each other out. That's great to see.
And the community will carry on and persevere together. Rick Marchand, president of the Leominster High School Athletics Booster Club. Thank you so much, Rick, for joining us. We'll have you back here on Press Row coming up again real soon.
Thank you, Todd. Stay safe, everyone.
Indeed. And we thank all of you so very much for joining us on this edition of Press Row. Like, subscribe, join, and follow right here with all the instructions right there on your screen here on Rivalry Family Media. For Rick Marchand and the rest of us at Rivalry Family Media, I am Todd Robbins saying thank you so very much for joining us. Join us again on Press Row real soon. Until then, so long, everybody.